I rushed into the emergency room to see my daughter in a coma after an accident, and suddenly a nurse pulled me sharply behind a curtain. Shh, hide and watch. Trust me. My heart was pounding when I looked inside. What I saw made my blood run cold. Before continuing, subscribe to our new channel, where we tell stories about men who take revenge on their insolent children, sons-in-law, and daughters-in-law. My name is Robert Clarkson. I'm 68 years old, living in Houston, Texas, in a house on Magnolia Heights Drive, worth $890,000, spent 38 years as a fire captain before hanging up my helmet. I used to think that after decades of running into burning buildings, nothing could shake me anymore. Turned out I was saving my real test for retirement. The house isn't just brick and mortar to me. It's where I raised 2 sons, where my late wife Sarah planted roses that still bloom every spring, where family dinners used to mean something. Now it feels more like a pressure cooker with the heat turned up, and I'm waiting for the explosion. I share this space with 3 people. My daughter Danielle, 42, teaches music at the local middle school. She's got her mother's kind eyes and stubborn chin. Then there's her husband, Jason Cooper, 41, an insurance agent with teeth too white and a handshake too firm. The kind of guy who laughs at his own jokes and calls everyone buddy. Finally, there's Ashley Clarkson, 38, my daughter-in-law. She was married to my older son Thomas before he died in a construction accident 4 years ago. I let her stay because she seemed lost, grieving. Now I wonder if I was just convenient. 3 months back, I started noticing things. Small things at first, the kind that make you question whether you're being paranoid or perceptive. Jason and Ashley whispering in the kitchen, their voices dropping the moment I walked in. Ashley spending an unusual amount of time asking about my will, my retirement accounts, my plans for the property. Just want to make sure you have everything in order, Robert, she'd say with that practiced smile. Jason became my shadow whenever I met with my accountant or reviewed financial documents. Just want to learn from you, Dad, he'd say. I'm not his dad, but he started using the term after he married Danielle. Something about it always felt calculated rather than affectionate. The conversations would stop mid-sentence when I entered a room. Laptops would snap shut. Phone screens would go dark. I caught them exchanging looks I couldn't quite read, but they made my gut tighten, the way it used to when I'd walk into a building and sense something was about to flash over. I'd watch them at dinner, the way Ashley's eyes would flick to Jason when she thought no one was looking, the way Jason's hand would linger on her arm a second too long when passing dishes. Danielle never seemed to notice, too busy grading papers or planning her next lesson. My daughter has always seen the best in people. I used to think that was beautiful. Now it terrified me. Last week I walked past Jason's home office and heard him on the phone. Yeah, almost there. Just need the old man to cooperate. The house alone is worth nearly $900,000. It's all falling into place. He looked up, saw me in the doorway, and his expression shifted so fast it could have given me whiplash. Hey, Dad, just talking about a client's estate planning. You know how it is. I nodded slowly, filed it away in my mental evidence locker. That morning started like any other. I was in my workshop in the garage, restoring an oak chair I'd picked up at an estate sale. The familiar smell of wood stain and the rhythm of sanding helped me think. Danielle had already left for school. I heard Jason upstairs, getting ready for work. Ashley was supposedly job hunting, though I never saw evidence of any interviews. Around 10:30, my phone rang. Jason's name on the screen. Odd, since he should have been at the office by then. Dad, you need to get to Memorial Hermann Hospital. Right now. His voice was frantic, breathless. It's Danielle. She fell down the stairs at home. She's not responding. They said she's in a coma. The world tilted. The chair I was holding clattered to the concrete floor. What? When did... My throat closed up. I came home because I forgot some files. Found her at the bottom of the staircase. Ambulance just took her. Please, just get here. The line went dead. I don't remember the drive to the hospital. One moment I was in my garage. The next I was parking at Memorial Hermann's emergency entrance, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn off the ignition. Danielle was my baby girl, the one who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during late-night feedings, who brought me dandelions like they were roses, who still called me every Sunday morning just to check in. The emergency room was controlled chaos. Fluorescent lights too bright, voices too loud, that antiseptic smell that meant crisis and fear. I spotted Jason immediately, standing near the nurse's station, talking on his phone. He saw me and rushed over, his face a mask of concern. "They won't tell me much yet," he said, gripping my shoulder. "Something about head trauma and loss of consciousness. They're running tests." "Where is she? I need to see her." "They're still examining her. We have to wait." Everything in me wanted to shove past every door until I found my daughter, but I knew hospital protocols. I'd brought enough injured people here over the years, so I waited, each minute stretching like hours, while Jason paced and made hushed phone calls, and Ashley arrived 20 minutes later, her makeup perfect, her expression appropriately distraught. I started toward the examination area, ready to demand answers, when a hand closed firmly around my wrist. A nurse, mid-50s with iron-gray hair and sharp eyes, pulled me sideways behind a privacy curtain. "Mr. Clarkson, quiet. Stay here and watch. Trust me on this." Her name tag read, "Joan Wells. What are you—" "I need to see my daughter." "And you will. But first you need to see this." She positioned me where I could see through a gap in the curtain, directly into the emergency bay where Danielle lay on a gurney, tubes and monitors attached to her still form. My heart hammered against my ribs. Then I saw them. Jason and Ashley walked to Danielle's bedside, looking around first, checking if anyone was watching. Jason leaned close to my unconscious daughter, and I had to strain to hear his words through the gap. "Don't worry, babe. The old man will sign everything today. By the end of the week, the house will be ours, and we can finally start our new life together." Ashley smiled, and it was like watching ice crack across a frozen lake. Finally getting rid of that place and his boring lectures about responsibility and family values. The floor seemed to drop away beneath me. The words echoed in my skull, rearranging everything I thought I knew. They did this. They put my daughter in that hospital bed. For a house. For money. For whatever twisted future they'd planned together. Joan Wells leaned close, her whisper urgent. "I've been a nurse for 28 years. Something felt wrong the moment they brought her in. The injuries didn't match a simple fall. So I checked her blood work personally." She pulled out her tablet, showing me lab results. "See these levels? Sedatives. Way more than accidental consumption. And the pattern of her injuries? Someone positioned her after she fell. Maybe even pushed her." I couldn't breathe. The edges of my vision went dark, then sharp. "Why are you telling me this?" My voice came out rough, barely controlled. "Because I've seen too many accidents that weren't accidents. Because your daughter deserves someone fighting for her. And because I saw the way those two walked in here, checking their phones, smiling at each other when they thought no one was looking. That's not how people act when their loved one is dying." Jason and Ashley were still at Danielle's bedside, playing their roles perfectly now that a doctor approached. Jason's hand on Danielle's, Ashley dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. The performance was flawless. If I hadn't heard them, I would have believed it myself. I thought about Thomas, my older son, dead 4 years now. Ashley had cried at his funeral, had seemed genuinely broken. I'd welcomed her into my home, helped her through her grief, treated her like family. And all along, what? Had she been calculating this? Or did Jason seduce her into it later, promising her a cut of my estate? Joan pulled me back further behind the curtain as hospital security walked past. "What are you going to do?" she asked. What was I going to do? Every instinct screamed to charge out there, to grab Jason by his perfectly pressed collar and slam him against the nearest wall, to expose them both right there in front of everyone. But 38 years of firefighting had taught me something crucial. Rushing into the flames gets you killed. You assess, you plan, you strike when you can win. "I'm going to play their game," I said quietly, watching them through the gap. "Better than they can imagine." Joan nodded slowly. "I'll document everything I found. Off the record for now, but admissible if you need it later. And I'll keep an eye on your daughter personally. They won't get near her without me knowing." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Just get justice for that girl." I stepped out from behind the curtain, arranging my face into appropriate devastation. Jason saw me and hurried over, Ashley trailing behind. Dad, I'm so sorry. The doctors said she's stable, but unconscious. They're not sure when she'll wake up. Jason's performance was Oscar-worthy. Almost made me sick. What happened? I let my voice crack. How did she fall? I don't know. I found her at the bottom of the stairs when I came home. Maybe she tripped, or got dizzy, or... He trailed off, shaking his head. Ashley touched my arm. Robert, we're here for you, whatever you need. I looked at her, really looked at her, seeing the calculation behind the sympathy. I can't lose another child, I said, letting the words shake. First Thomas, now this. I can't. You won't, Jason said firmly. Danielle's strong. She'll pull through, and we'll all be here to help her recover. The words sounded so genuine. The concern in his eyes looked so real. If I hadn't heard the truth 5 minutes ago, I would have been grateful for his support. Instead, I was already planning his destruction. I need to think about her future, I said slowly, as if the thought was just occurring to me. About protecting her financially if something happens to me. I'm 68, Jason, not getting any younger. I watched his eyes light up, just for a fraction of a second before he smoothed it over with appropriate solemnity. That's smart thinking, Dad. Really responsible. Maybe we should sit down and talk about that soon, when things are calmer. Yeah, I said. Soon. They thought they'd won. They thought the old firefighter was just a foolish old man, ripe for manipulation. They had no idea that I'd spent nearly 4 decades reading smoke, predicting fire behavior, knowing exactly when a situation was about to turn deadly. I stood there in that emergency room, my daughter unconscious because of their greed, and I felt something cold and precise settle in my chest. Not rage, not yet. This was something colder. This was purpose. They wanted my house, my money. They'd tried to kill my daughter to get it? Fine. Let them think they were winning. Let them believe I was broken and desperate and ready to sign anything. I'd play the grieving father, the worried old man, the easy mark. And while they celebrated their victory, I'd be building their cage, bar by bar, using their own greed as the lock. The fire captain in me knew the best way to fight a fire is to understand it completely before you make your move. So I'd watch, I'd wait, and I'd learn everything about their plan, and then I'd burn their whole scheme to ashes. I stayed at the hospital until late that evening, playing my part to perfection. The broken father, the desperate old man clinging to hope. Jason and Ashley hovered nearby, their concern so practiced it could have been rehearsed. Maybe it was. Dad, you should go home and rest, Jason said, his hand on my shoulder. We'll stay with Danielle tonight. You've had a shock. I let my shoulders sag, rubbed my eyes like exhaustion was catching up with me. I can't lose her, Jason. She's all I have left. You won't. He squeezed my shoulder, and I had to resist the urge to break his fingers. She's strong, like her old man. Ashley appeared with coffee from the cafeteria, pressing the cup into my hands. Robert, please, take care of yourself. Danielle needs you healthy. The coffee was probably fine, but I made a mental note never to consume anything they gave me again. I took a small sip, nodded gratefully. You're right, both of you. I don't know what I'd do without family. The word tasted bitter in my mouth, but they ate it up. Ashley's eyes actually got misty. The performance was remarkable. I left the hospital, but I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to a 24-hour diner on the edge of downtown, ordered black coffee I actually trusted, and started making calls. First to my bank, confirming my accounts were secure and adding additional authentication requirements. Then to my insurance company, updating my beneficiary information in ways Jason and Ashley would never see coming. By the time I got home past midnight, I'd set 3 critical pieces in motion. Jason's car was in the driveway. Of course it was. He was staying over, playing the devoted son-in-law keeping vigil. I wondered if Ashley was here too, or if they were smart enough not to push their luck that far. The next morning I woke early. Old habits from the fire station. I made breakfast, the smell of bacon and eggs filling the kitchen, and waited. Jason came down at 7:30, looking tired but satisfied, like someone who thought their plan was working. Morning, Dad. You sleep okay? Not really. Kept thinking about Danielle. I slid eggs onto a plate for him, and about what you said yesterday. about her future, about protecting her financially. His fork paused halfway to his mouth. Yeah? I've been thinking. You're right. I'm not getting younger. 68 years old, and my friends are dropping like flies. Frank Wilson had a heart attack last month. Bill Green just got diagnosed with cancer. I shook my head, staring into my coffee. Makes a man think about his mortality. It's smart to plan ahead. Jason's voice was careful, controlled, but I saw the excitement in his eyes, like a shark smelling blood in the water. The house is worth almost $900,000 now. The neighborhood's gone up since I bought it 30 years ago for $62,000. I let that number sink in. Danielle should have security, especially now, with this accident showing how fragile life is. Absolutely. And you know I'll take care of her, whatever she needs. I bet you will, I thought. I want to talk to a lawyer, set things up properly. Maybe this week if you're available to come with me. The smile that crossed his face made my skin crawl. Of course. Whatever you need, I'm here. Ashley showed up an hour later. No explanation for why she was there so early, but I didn't ask. I watched them in the living room while I pretended to read the newspaper in the kitchen, the way Jason's hand lingered on her lower back when he thought I wasn't looking. The way she leaned into him just slightly, her smile private and satisfied. They thought they were being subtle. They weren't. I spent the day observing them with new eyes. Every interaction was a revelation. When Ashley offered to help me with paperwork, I saw her scanning for financial documents. When Jason suggested we update my will just to be safe, I heard the calculation behind the concern. They moved through my house like vultures circling a dying animal, patient but eager. At lunch, Jason took a phone call in the backyard. I watched through the kitchen window as he paced, gesturing animatedly. When he came back in, he was smiling. Just work stuff. Client wants to increase their life insurance policy. Business must be good, I said mildly. It is. People are finally understanding the importance of protecting their assets, their families. He looked right at me when he said it, and I wondered if he appreciated the irony. That afternoon, while they were both upstairs, supposedly helping organize Danielle's hospital bag, I checked Jason's briefcase in the hallway. Inside, I found a folder with printouts about real estate values in our neighborhood, contact information for 3 different realtors, and a note in Ashley's handwriting. Quick sale, EST 30 days closing. Take the first offer over $850,000. They'd already planned how fast they'd dump my house. Probably had the California real estate listings bookmarked too. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it and returned to the living room, my jaw tight enough to crack teeth. But when they came downstairs, I was settled in my recliner, looking every bit the tired old man I was supposed to be. Ashley was just saying maybe we should all have dinner together, Jason announced. As a family. Once Danielle's home, of course. That sounds nice, I said. Family's important. It's all we really have in the end. The words sounded sincere. They nodded, agreeing, probably mentally counting their future earnings. I excused myself early, claiming exhaustion, and went to my bedroom. But I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, thinking about Thomas, my oldest son. He died 4 years ago in that construction accident. I'd held Ashley at the funeral, felt her shake with sobs, believed her grief was real. Now I wondered if she'd been calculating even then, figuring out how to leverage my loss for her gain. The thought made something cold and final settle in my chest. They wanted to play games with my family? Fine. But they'd chosen the wrong opponent. I hadn't survived 38 years fighting fires by being reckless. I'd survived by being patient, methodical, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. The next morning, I called Gerald Foster's office. I didn't know Gerald personally, but his firm had handled the estate planning for 3 of my former colleagues, and they'd all spoken highly of his discretion. I needed someone who could keep secrets. I need to set up a trust, I told his secretary, and I need it done carefully. Are there private consultation rooms? She scheduled me for that afternoon. I told Jason I was going to the hardware store and the bank. Neither was a lie. I just didn't mention the lawyer's office in between. Gerald Foster's office was on the 15th floor of a building downtown. All glass and steel and the kind of quiet money whispers in. He was in his early 50s, gray at the temples, with the careful handshake of someone who dealt in people's final wishes. "Mr. Clarkson, please sit. What can I do for you?" I laid it out for him. Not all of it. Not the attempted murder, not yet. But enough. I need to create a living trust for my property. My house, my accounts, my pension. But I need it structured in a very specific way. Go on. I want it to appear that certain people will benefit. My son-in-law, my daughter-in-law. But the actual legal language needs to ensure that only my blood relatives can ever receive anything, and I need them not to understand that until it's too late. Gerald leaned back in his chair, studying me. "That's an unusual request. May I ask why?" "Because they're trying to steal from me, and I'm going to let them think they've succeeded right up until the moment I pull the rug out." A slow smile crossed his face. "I see. That's actually quite doable. Texas law is very specific about trust language and beneficiary designation. We can create a document that seems to include them while actually excluding them through carefully worded clauses about blood relations and survivorship." "How much?" "For this kind of precise work, $4,200. But it'll be airtight, I guarantee it." I wrote the check. Money well spent. We spent 2 hours going over the details. Gerald was thorough, asking questions about my assets, my wishes for Danielle, the specific ways I wanted to mislead Jason and Ashley. By the time I left, I had a plan, a real, legal, unbreakable plan. But I needed more. I needed proof of what they'd done. I found Marcus Hill through an ad in the phone book, of all places. Discreet investigations, in small print, at the bottom of the page. His office was above a bail bondsman in a part of town where people minded their own business. Marcus was maybe late 40s, ex-cop written all over him in the way he sized me up when I walked in. "What do you need, Mr. Clarkson?" "I need you to follow 2 people. Document everywhere they go, everyone they meet with, everything they say if you can manage it. And I need photographs." "Divorce case?" "Something like that." He quoted me $3,500 for a week of surveillance, plus expenses. I paid half up front in cash. "Who am I following?" I gave him photos of Jason and Ashley from my phone, their car descriptions, their likely patterns. "I think they're having an affair. I think they're planning to defraud me, and I think they recently did something much worse, but I need evidence before I go to the police." Marcus's expression didn't change, but his posture shifted slightly. More alert. "How much worse?" "Attempted murder of my daughter." He set down his pen carefully. "You should go to the police now." "I will, when I have everything I need to make sure they never see daylight again. Can you help me or not?" He studied me for a long moment. "Yeah, I can help. But if I find evidence of a serious crime, I'm obligated to report it." "I'm counting on it." I left his office feeling lighter than I had since the hospital. The pieces were moving into position. At home, I found Ashley in the kitchen, making herself tea like she owned the place. "Robert, you were gone a while. Everything okay?" "Just running errands. Bank, hardware store, stopped for lunch." The lies came easily now. "How's everything here?" "Quiet. I've been thinking about Danielle, hoping she wakes up soon." "Me too." I poured myself water, watching her reflection in the microwave's glass door. She was texting someone, hiding her phone against her leg. The screen's glow gave her away. "You've been such a help, Ashley. Staying here, taking care of things. Thomas would have been proud." She looked up, and for just a second something flickered across her face. Guilt? Annoyance? It vanished too quickly to tell. "He was a good man. I miss him every day." "Liar. I'm going to make sure you're taken care of," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Your family. That matters to me." Her smile was radiant. "Thank you, Robert. That means everything." I went to my workshop in the garage, closed the door, and let myself feel the rage for exactly 60 seconds. Let it burn through me, hot and purifying. Then I locked it away and got to work sanding the oak chair, letting the rhythm calm my thoughts. They thought I was weak, thought I was stupid. Thought grief and age had made me an easy target. They had no idea what was coming, and that's when I understood exactly how to repay them. Not just legally, not just financially. I was going to give them everything they wanted, or make them think I had, right up until the moment their world collapsed. I'd let them taste victory so completely that the loss would destroy them. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for them to walk into it. 6 days after Danielle's accident, she opened her eyes. I was there, sitting beside her hospital bed, when her fingers twitched and her eyelids fluttered. The relief hit me like a physical force, but I kept it controlled, measured. "Dad?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here, sweetheart. Right here." The doctors came, ran their tests, declared it a miracle. Jason and Ashley arrived within the hour, their concern perfectly calibrated. Jason held Danielle's hand, tears in his eyes that might have even been real. Ashley dabbed at her own eyes with a tissue, whispering about prayers being answered. I watched them perform their roles and said nothing. Over the next few days, as Danielle recovered, I visited her alone during the hours when Jason was supposedly at work and Ashley was supposedly running errands. I sat in the chair beside her bed, keeping my voice low. "Do you remember what happened?" I asked her. She frowned, trying to piece it together. "Jason brought me coffee. I remember that. It tasted a little bitter, but I thought maybe the cream had gone bad. Then I felt dizzy, really dizzy, like the room was spinning. And then I was at the top of the stairs. I remember thinking I needed to sit down. Then nothing. Just waking up here." She looked at me, confusion clouding her eyes. "Dad, did I fall?" I could have told her then, could have shown her everything Marcus had already uncovered, but something held me back. If I told her now, while she was still weak, while she was still in the hospital, surrounded by Jason's visits and Ashley's fake sympathy, she might crack, might give it away. So I lied. "You fell, sweetheart. It was an accident. But you're going to be okay." She believed me because she had no reason not to, because she still trusted her husband. The thought made my chest tight with rage and something darker. Meanwhile, Marcus was earning every dollar of his fee. A week after I hired him, he called me with an update. We met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from my house, far enough that Jason and Ashley wouldn't accidentally spot us. He slid an envelope across the table. "You're going to want to look at these in private?" I opened it anyway. Photographs spilled out. Jason and Ashley in a motel parking lot, their bodies pressed together against his car. Ashley's hand in his hair, his hand on her lower back, intimate and familiar. More photos inside the motel window, curtains open just enough for a telephoto lens to catch them. "There's more," Marcus said. "Audio. I followed them after they left the motel. They stopped at a bar, sat in his car in the parking lot. Texas is a one-party consent state, and I was in a public parking lot, so the recording is admissible." He handed me a small digital recorder. I pressed play, and their voices filled my earbuds. Jason's voice. "Once the old man signs the trust documents, we're golden. The house is worth $890,000, easy. We sell it, split the money, and we're gone." Ashley's voice. "What about Danielle?" "What about her? We'd divorce her, tell her we grew apart. She'll be so broken up about losing me, she won't even fight it. Plus, with her medical bills from the accident, she'll need the insurance settlement more than a share of the house." They laughed. Actually laughed. I handed the recorder back to Marcus, my hands steady despite the white-hot fury burning through my veins. "Is this enough? Enough to prove an affair and intent to defraud? Absolutely. Enough for attempted murder? That's trickier. The nurse's testimony helps. The medical records help. But you need more. Direct evidence. Then find it." 2 weeks crawled by. Danielle came home, still weak but recovering. Jason was attentive, bringing her pillows, adjusting her blankets, cooking her meals. Ashley helped too, cleaning the house, doing laundry, playing the devoted family member. I watched them both with new eyes, seeing the calculation behind every gesture. When Jason brought Danielle tea, I saw him checking her reaction, gauging her suspicion level. When Ashley asked me about my day, I heard her fishing for information about my financial plans. Then came the moment I'd been building toward. 3 weeks after Danielle's accident, I called a family meeting in the living room. Jason and Ashley arrived within minutes, sensing opportunity. "I've been thinking," I began, settling into my chair with what I hoped looked like exhaustion, "about Danielle's accident, about mortality, about how quickly things can change." Jason leaned forward, predatory attention masked as concern. "We've all been thinking about that, Dad. You were right, Jason, what you said at the hospital. I need to plan for the future, for Danielle's future. I paused, let the words hang. I want to set up a living trust. Ashley's eyes sharpened. What's that exactly? I explained it slowly, carefully, feeding them the lie Gerald Foster had helped me craft. It's a way to transfer assets without probate. The house, my accounts, everything goes into the trust. Danielle becomes the primary beneficiary, but you, Jason, as her husband, would be co-trustee. It means if something happens to me, the transition is immediate. No courts, no delays. The look that passed between them was pure greed, barely disguised as relief. That's very responsible of you, Jason said, his voice steady but his eyes glittering. When were you thinking of doing this? Soon. My lawyer can have the documents ready within the week. Your lawyer? Ashley's tone was casual, but I caught the edge of concern. We could help you find someone if you need recommendations. Already have someone, Gerald Foster. He's handled estate planning for several of my colleagues from the fire department. I watched them process this, saw the moment they decided it didn't matter. They'd outsmart whatever lawyer I hired. They always did, didn't they? A week later, we sat in Gerald's office on the 15th floor of the Texas Tower. The city spread out below us, Houston stretching to the horizon. Gerald was perfect, playing his role as the slightly bored estate attorney who'd seen 1,000 of these meetings. Mr. Clarkson wants to establish a revocable living trust, Gerald explained to Jason and Ashley. The primary asset is the property at Magnolia Heights Drive, currently valued at $890,000. Jason couldn't hide his smile. Ashley managed better, but her hands trembled slightly as she touched the pen Gerald offered her. As co-trustees, Gerald continued, you'll have certain administrative responsibilities, but the beneficial interest belongs to Miss Danielle Clarkson Cooper, with contingent benefits to Mr. Jason Cooper as her spouse. It was all lies. The real document, the one I'd actually signed, contained clauses they'd never see, provisions that limited beneficiaries to blood relatives only, language that would exclude Jason automatically upon divorce or death, terms that protected Danielle absolutely and gave them nothing. But the document they saw, the one Gerald showed them with its highlighted sections and simplified explanations, told a different story, one where they won. I signed, they witnessed, Gerald notarized. Jason shook my hand afterward, gripping it firm and looking me straight in the eye. Thank you for trusting us with this, Dad. It means everything. Family is everything, I replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. Danielle came home from her follow-up appointment a week later. The doctors said she was healing well, that the head trauma hadn't caused permanent damage. They didn't know about the damage to her heart that was coming. I waited until evening, until Jason was at what he claimed was a late client meeting, and Ashley had gone to her room. Then I sat Danielle down at the kitchen table. I need to show you something, I said, and I need you to stay quiet until I'm finished. Her expression shifted from curious to concerned. Dad, you're scaring me. I know, but you need to see this. I opened my laptop and started with the photographs. Danielle stared at the screen, her face draining of color as image after image appeared. Jason and Ashley at the motel. Jason and Ashley kissing in the parking lot. Jason and Ashley in the bar, their heads close together, laughing. No, she whispered. No, that's not. That can't be. Wait. I played the audio recording. Let her hear their voices planning to sell the house, to divorce her, to take the money, and disappear to California. She listened to the whole thing, sitting perfectly still except for the tears streaming down her face. When it finished, she looked at me with eyes that held something I'd never seen there before. Rage. They tried to kill me, she said, her voice flat and cold. The coffee, the dizziness. They drugged me and pushed me down the stairs. Yes, for money. For a house and money. Yes. She stood up, paced to the window, her hands shaking. What are we going to do? Trust me, I said. They think they've won. They think the house is theirs, that I've handed them everything on a silver platter. But the trust documents they saw, they're not real. The real documents protect you completely. They'll never see a dime. She turned, and despite the tears, she was smiling. It wasn't a happy smile. It was something harder, sharper. Good. What else? We wait. We let them celebrate, let them plan their future, and then we make sure they spend that future in a prison cell. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus continued his surveillance. He caught Jason meeting with a realtor, discussing how quickly they could sell a property in our neighborhood. The realtor, bless her mercenary heart, was happy to talk numbers. 890,000, maybe 900 if they waited for the right buyer. How soon could we list it? Jason asked on the recording Marcus provided. Anytime you want, the realtor replied. Is the owner ready to sell? He will be, soon. Marcus caught Ashley, too, at a travel agency, looking at rental properties in San Diego. Beachfront apartments, 2 bedrooms, monthly rates that started at $4,500. She was already spending my money in her head. The evidence piled up. The affair, the conspiracy, the intent to defraud. But attempted murder was harder to prove. We needed something concrete, something undeniable. Then Marcus found it. He showed up at my door 3 weeks after I'd hired him, his expression grim. You need to see this. We sat in my garage workshop, the door closed, the oak chair I'd been restoring providing a strange sense of normalcy. Marcus opened his laptop. I went back through Jason's trash from the week of Danielle's accident, paid the garbage company for access to the specific bags from your address. He pulled up photos. Found this. An empty prescription bottle. Zolpidem. Sedative medication. Prescribed to Ashley Clarkson, filled 2 weeks before Danielle's fall. The bottle should have had at least 20 pills left. It was empty. And this, Marcus continued, showing me another photo. Coffee grounds from your kitchen trash, from the morning of the accident. I had them tested. Traces of Zolpidem in the grounds. My hands clenched on the workbench. That's enough? Combined with the medical evidence, the nurse's testimony, the suspicious circumstances? Yeah, that's enough. We built our case carefully over the next week. Joan Wells, the nurse from the ER, agreed to give a statement. The hospital provided Danielle's medical records, showing the sedative levels in her blood. Marcus compiled his surveillance logs, the photographs, the audio recordings. Gerald prepared documentation showing the real trust terms versus what Jason and Ashley believed. And then we waited for the perfect moment. It came on a Tuesday evening. Jason and Ashley were both home, relaxed, confident. They'd been whispering in the living room about California beaches and new cars and freedom. I called them both into the dining room. I want to talk about the future, I said, about making sure you're both taken care of. Jason's eyes lit up. Ashley tried to look humble but failed. I've been thinking about my pension, I continued. It's worth $127,000. Jason, I want to add you as a beneficiary. He actually gasped. Dad, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet. Ashley, you've been here for 4 years since Thomas died. You've helped with the house, with expenses. I want to give you $45,000 as compensation for everything you've done. Ashley's mask slipped entirely. Pure triumph flooded her face. Robert, that's so generous. Family takes care of family, I said, the words ashes in my mouth. I'd called a notary, told them he'd be here any minute to make it official. We just needed to sign a few documents. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find not a notary, but 2 Houston police detectives and Joan Wells standing behind them. Robert Clarkson? The lead detective asked. Yes. We're here to arrest Jason Cooper and Ashley Clarkson for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. The silence that followed was exquisite. I turned to see Jason and Ashley frozen in the dining room doorway. Jason's face had gone the color of spoiled milk, his mouth hanging open like a fish drowning in air. Ashley's hands flew to her throat, her carefully maintained composure shattering like dropped glass. What? Jason's voice came out strangled. What did you say? The detective stepped inside, reading from a document. We have evidence that you conspired to drug Danielle Clarkson Cooper with sedatives, causing her to fall downstairs with intent to cause severe harm or death. We have evidence of conspiracy to defraud Robert Clarkson of property valued at $890,000. We have recordings of your conversations detailing your plan. Ashley found her voice. This is insane. Robert, tell them this is crazy. I looked at her, really looked at her, and let her see everything I'd been hiding for weeks. The knowledge, the rage, the cold satisfaction. Tell them, Ashley. Tell them how you and my daughter's husband have been having an affair. Tell them how you drugged my daughter and pushed her down the stairs. Tell them how you planned to steal my house and disappear to California? Her face went from white to red, panic flooding her eyes. You can't prove any of that. Actually, the detective said, producing a warrant, we can. Jason found his voice first, though it came out higher than usual. This is ridiculous. We haven't done anything wrong. Robert, this is some kind of misunderstanding, right? I walked past the detectives into my own living room, taking my time, letting the moment breathe. Danielle stood near the fireplace, her face pale, but her eyes blazing with something I hadn't seen in weeks. Strength, anger, justice. Misunderstanding? I turned to look at Jason, really look at him. Is that what you call drugging my daughter with sedatives and pushing her down the stairs? A misunderstanding? Ashley's hands trembled as she pointed at me. You're insane. You're a paranoid old man who's lost his mind. Joan, I said, gesturing to the nurse who'd stepped inside behind the detectives. Would you mind explaining what you found? Joan Wells pulled out a folder, her professional demeanor firmly in place. When Danielle Clarkson Cooper arrived at Memorial Hermann, I noted several inconsistencies. The injury pattern didn't match a simple fall. The bruising on her shoulders suggested she'd been grabbed or pushed, and her blood work showed zolpidem levels consistent with someone who'd been drugged, not someone who'd accidentally taken medication. That doesn't prove anything, Jason said, but his confidence was cracking like thin ice. The lead detective, a man named Rodriguez, who'd been briefed thoroughly by Marcus and Gerald, opened his own file. We have the empty prescription bottle from your trash, Mr. Cooper. Zolpidem prescribed to Ashley Clarkson. We have coffee grounds from your kitchen trash, tested positive for the same medication. We have Nurse Wells's testimony about the suspicious nature of the injuries and the sedative levels. And, I added, unable to keep the satisfaction from my voice, we have you two on recording planning to steal my house. Ashley's face went from red to white. What recording? I nodded to the detective, who pulled out a small digital player. He pressed play, and their voices filled my living room. Jason's voice. Once the old man signs the trust documents, we're golden. The house is worth $890,000. Easy. Ashley's voice. What about Danielle? Jason's voice. What about her? We divorce her. Tell her we grew apart. She'll need the insurance settlement more than a share of the house. Their laughter on the recording sounded obscene in the silent room. Jason's face had transformed. The charming insurance agent was gone, replaced by something cornered and desperate. Where did you get that? That's illegal wiretapping. Actually, Marcus Hill said, stepping through the door behind the officers. I'd asked him to be here for this moment. It's completely legal. Texas is a one-party consent state for recordings in public spaces. I was in a public parking lot. You were in your car with the windows partially down. No expectation of privacy. You had us followed? Ashley's voice climbed toward hysteria. This is harassment. This is justice. Danielle spoke for the first time, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. You tried to kill me, Jason. You poisoned me. You pushed me down the stairs. For money. Baby, no, you don't understand. Jason started toward her, but Detective Rodriguez stepped between them. Don't, the detective said quietly. Mr. Cooper, Miss Clarkson, we also have evidence of your affair, your meetings with realtors to sell this property, and your plans to flee to California. We have statements from the realtor you contacted about quick sales after the owner's death. We have your search history on your phone, warrants already been served to your cell provider, showing you researched sedative dosages and how to make accidents look authentic. The room fell silent except for Ashley's ragged breathing. She looked at me, and I saw the moment she understood. Really understood. You knew, she whispered. All along. The trust documents, the pension, the money you offered us today. You knew everything. I knew from the moment Joan pulled me behind that curtain in the ER and let me watch you two celebrate over my daughter's hospital bed. I kept my voice even, cold. I heard you planning to take my house. I heard you dismiss Danielle like she was trash you needed to dispose of. The trust, Jason said suddenly, desperately. The living trust we signed. It's not real, is it? I smiled. Couldn't help it. Oh, it's real. Legally binding, notarized, filed with the county. But the version you saw? That was just for show. The real document, the one I actually signed, specifies that beneficiaries must be blood relatives only. You were never going to get a cent, Jason. And Ashley? You signed away any claim you might have had to Thomas's portion when you witnessed those documents. Gerald Foster stepped in from the hallway where he'd been waiting. I made sure everything was airtight, Robert. They have no legal claim to anything. You set us up, Ashley said, her voice hollow. This whole thing was a trap. No, I corrected her. You set yourselves up when you decided to murder my daughter for money. I just made sure you'd get what you deserved. Detective Rodriguez pulled out handcuffs. Jason Cooper, Ashley Clarkson, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. You have the right to remain silent. I watched as the cuffs went on Jason's wrists. His face had gone slack, disbelieving. Ashley was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. They'd thought they were so clever, so careful. They'd thought I was just a foolish old man, too grief-stricken and too trusting to see what was happening under my own roof. As the detectives led them toward the door, I called out, Jason, Ashley! They both turned, and I wanted them to see my face clearly, to understand exactly what had happened. You thought I was just some old firefighter, too stupid to notice you plotting. But here's something you should have considered. I spent 38 years walking into burning buildings, reading smoke, predicting where the fire would strike next, and saving people who couldn't save themselves. You think I couldn't spot two amateurs playing a game they had no business playing? Jason's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. You picked the wrong family, I continued. You picked the wrong father. And you definitely picked the wrong daughter to try to kill. The door closed behind them, and for a long moment, nobody moved. Then Danielle crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me, shaking with sobs that were equal parts relief and rage and grief. It's over, I told her, holding her tight. It's over. But it wasn't. Not yet. 3 days later, Jason and Ashley's lawyer showed up at my door. His name was Martin Chase, and he had the polished look of someone who charged $500 an hour and thought he was worth it. Mr. Clarkson, I represent Jason Cooper and Ashley Clarkson. I'd like to discuss a resolution to this unfortunate situation. I let him into the living room, but didn't offer coffee. There's nothing to discuss. They tried to murder my daughter. My clients maintain their innocence. The evidence is circumstantial at best. The recordings could be misinterpreted. The medication in the trash could have been disposed of for any number of reasons. And the financial planning conversations were simply prudent, estate management discussions. He was good. I'd give him that. Smooth, confident, selling his story like it was the truth. Your clients drugged my daughter and pushed her down the stairs so they could steal my house and run off to California together. I said flatly, the evidence isn't circumstantial. It's overwhelming. Nevertheless, Chase continued unruffled, a trial would be lengthy, expensive, and emotionally devastating for your daughter. My clients are prepared to offer a plea agreement. Jason will divorce Danielle quietly. They'll both leave Houston, and you'll drop the charges. No. Mr. Clarkson, be reasonable. Reasonable? I leaned forward. You want reasonable? I'll tell you what's reasonable. Your clients face trial, get convicted, and spend the next decade or more in prison. That's reasonable. Chase's expression hardened. If this goes to trial, we'll paint a very different picture. A grief-stricken widower, overcome with paranoia. A daughter who may have had a drug problem we'll discover in her medical history. An affair, yes, but not a crime. An accident. Tragic, but not intentional. And a bitter old man looking for someone to blame. My jaw tightened. Get out of my house. Think about it, Mr. Clarkson. Think about what a trial will do to Danielle. Think about her having to testify, having to relive the trauma. Think about Jason's lawyers questioning her mental state, her marriage, her relationship with her father. Think about how we'll examine every aspect of your family's life. He left his card on the coffee table and showed himself out. That evening I sat with Danielle and told her what Chase had said. She listened, her face growing paler, but when I finished, her response was immediate. No, we're not dropping the charges. I don't care what they threaten. They need to face justice. It's going to be hard, I warned her. They're going to try to make you look unstable, make it seem like the fall was your fault. Let them try. Her voice was steel. I know the truth. You know the truth. The evidence knows the truth. The next few weeks were a blur of depositions, legal meetings, and strategy sessions. Chase wasn't bluffing about making it difficult. He filed motions to suppress evidence, motions to exclude testimony, motions questioning the legality of Marcus's surveillance. Judge Martha Keene, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd seen every trick in the book, denied most of them, but she let some through, enough to make our case slightly harder than it should have been. Then Jason and Ashley tried a different tack. They started calling me. Block numbers at first, then from the jail, collect calls I refused to accept. They had friends reach out, mutual acquaintances from the neighborhood, people from Ashley's grief support group after Thomas died. Robert, please. Ashley's devastated. She made mistakes, yes, but she doesn't deserve prison. Robert, Jason's parents are elderly. This would kill them. Can't you find forgiveness? I listened politely to each plea and gave the same response. They tried to murder my daughter. There's no forgiveness for that. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Marcus called me 5 weeks after the arrest, his voice tight with excitement. I found something. Jason's computer, the one the police seized, had deleted files. The tech forensics team recovered them. What kind of files? Searches on sedative interactions, how long certain drugs stay in someone's system, forums about staging accidents, and emails. Jason and Ashley had a shared email account they thought they'd deleted. Everything's there. The planning, the timing, discussions about the insurance payout if you died of grief after losing Danielle. My hands went cold. They planned my death too? Looks like it was the next step. Get the house through the trust, then wait for you to die, or help you along if you took too long. The pieces clicked into place. The life insurance policy Jason had suggested I increase 2 months ago. The new medication Ashley had recommended for my blood pressure. The stairs she'd mentioned were getting dangerous, suggesting I should be careful. They hadn't just been planning to kill Danielle. They'd been planning to kill me too. I called Detective Rodriguez immediately. He came to the house that evening, reviewed the evidence Marcus had helped the forensics team uncover, and his expression grew grimmer with each page. This changes everything, he said. This isn't just attempted murder of your daughter anymore. This is conspiracy to commit multiple murders for financial gain. The DA is going to want maximum sentences. When Chase heard about the new evidence, he tried one last time to negotiate, but his confidence was gone, replaced by the frantic energy of someone watching his case collapse. My clients will plead guilty to fraud and assault. 5 years, eligible for parole in 3. 12 years minimum for Jason, I countered, 8 for Ashley, and they pay Danielle $250,000 in restitution. That's excessive. It's generous, I cut him off, because attempted murder carries 20 years, and now we have evidence they were planning to kill me too. Tell your clients they can take the deal or take their chances at trial. Either way, they're going to prison. Chase left looking 20 years older than when he'd arrived. The next day, Jason and Ashley accepted the plea deal. The trial was scheduled for 3 months later, but with the plea agreement in place, we moved straight to sentencing. The courtroom in Harris County was exactly what you'd expect: wood paneling, fluorescent lights, and the heavy smell of old books and anxiety. I sat in the gallery with Danielle beside me, her hand gripping mine so tight I could feel her pulse. Joan Wells sat behind us, having taken the day off from the hospital to see this through. Marcus Hill was there too, along with Gerald Foster. They'd become more than just professionals I'd hired. They'd become witnesses to justice. Jason and Ashley were led in wearing orange jumpsuits, their hands cuffed. The transformation from the confident schemers who'd lived in my house to these defeated figures was startling. Ashley's hair hung limp, no makeup, none of the careful grooming she'd always maintained. Jason's shoulders slumped forward, his expensive insurance agent charm completely stripped away. Judge Martha Keene entered, and everyone stood. She was a woman who didn't waste time with pleasantries. The moment she sat, she got to business. This court has reviewed the plea agreement between the state of Texas and defendants Jason Cooper and Ashley Clarkson. Mr. Cooper, you've agreed to plead guilty to attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. Miss Clarkson, you've agreed to plead guilty to attempted murder as an accessory and conspiracy to commit fraud. Is this correct? Their lawyer stood. Yes, Your Honor. Before I accept these pleas, I want to hear from the victims. Mr. Clarkson, would you like to make a statement? I stood slowly, gathering my thoughts. I'd planned what I wanted to say, but now, facing them, the words needed to be different, more honest. Your Honor, these two people lived in my home. I fed them, sheltered them, treated them like family. Ashley was married to my son Thomas before he died. I held her at his funeral. I let her stay in my house, rent-free, for 4 years, because I thought she was grieving, struggling, needed support. Ashley's head dropped lower. Jason married my daughter. I welcomed him into my family, paid for their wedding, helped them when they had financial troubles, and they repaid that kindness by drugging my daughter with sedatives and pushing her down the stairs. They tried to murder her so they could steal my house and run away together. I paused, letting that sink in. Judge Keene was watching me carefully, her expression neutral but attentive. The evidence shows they were planning to kill me too once they had the house. They researched how to make it look like natural causes. They calculated insurance payouts. They treated my life and my daughter's life like line items in their budget. Jason's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. There was no good defense for this, and he knew it. But here's what they didn't count on, I continued. They thought I was just a tired old man, too trusting and too stupid to see what was happening. They forgot that I spent nearly 4 decades as a firefighter. That job taught me to spot danger before it became a disaster, to read people under pressure, to stay calm when everything's burning down around you. I looked directly at Jason and Ashley. They picked the wrong family to betray. Judge Keene nodded. Thank you, Mr. Clarkson. Miss Clarkson Cooper, do you have a statement? Danielle stood, her voice shaking but determined. Jason was my husband. I loved him. I trusted him completely. And he drugged me. He pushed me down the stairs. He planned to kill me and take everything my father worked for. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice grew stronger. I woke up in a hospital, confused and in pain, and he stood at my bedside pretending to care while planning with his lover how to finish what they started. That's not just betrayal. That's evil. Ashley made a sound, something between a sob and a protest, but her lawyer put a hand on her arm. I want them to serve every day of their sentence, Danielle finished. I want them to understand that you can't destroy people's lives without consequences. The judge asked if the defense wanted to speak. Chase stood, made a half-hearted attempt to paint his clients as desperate people who made terrible mistakes, but even he sounded defeated. How do you defend attempted murder for money? Then came the moment we'd all been waiting for. Judge Keene looked at Jason and Ashley with an expression that could freeze fire. In my 30 years on the bench, I've seen a lot of greed, but this case represents something particularly vile. You targeted a family that trusted you. You attempted to murder a young woman whose only crime was loving the wrong man. And your plan included murdering a 68-year-old man who'd shown you nothing but kindness. She picked up her gavel. Jason Cooper, I sentence you to 12 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice with no possibility of parole before serving at least 85% of your sentence. Ashley Clarkson, I sentence you to 8 years under the same terms. Additionally, you will jointly pay restitution to Danielle Clarkson Cooper in the amount of $250,000. The gavel came down with a sound like thunder. Jason's face crumpled. He actually started crying. These pathetic, hiccuping sobs. This isn't fair. We just wanted a better life. You wanted a better life? Judge Keene's voice cut through his whining like a blade. You tried to murder 2 people. You don't get to complain about fairness. Ashley was silent, staring at the table in front of her. I watched her shoulders shake, watched the reality sink in. 8 years. She'd be 46 when she got out. No house, no money, no future with Jason, even if their relationship survived prison. As the bailiffs led them away, Jason turned back one last time. His eyes found mine, and in them I saw something I'd been waiting for. Recognition, understanding, the complete comprehension that he'd lost everything. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just held his gaze until he looked away. 3 months later, I sat on the back porch of my house on Magnolia Heights Drive, watching the sun set over Houston. The house was appraised at $920,000 now. The neighborhood kept getting more valuable, which would have made Jason and Ashley sick if they'd known. Danielle came out carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. She'd gotten her divorce finalized the week before. Jason had signed everything from prison without protest. His parents had come to the house once, crying and apologizing, asking if there was anything they could do. I'd told them gently that their son's choices weren't their fault, and sent them on their way. "How are you feeling?" I asked as Danielle settled into the chair beside me. "Free," she said simply. For the first time in months, actually free. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. The house felt different now, lighter. The weight of betrayal and conspiracy had lifted when Jason and Ashley were led away in handcuffs. "Dad," Danielle said eventually, "can I ask you something?" "Anything." "How did you know? I mean, really know? Before Joan showed you what they said in the hospital?" I thought about that. "You remember how I used to tell you and Thomas about reading smoke when you were kids? You said smoke tells you where the fire's going before the fire knows itself." "Exactly. People are like that too. They give off signals. Jason and Ashley started giving off signals 3 months before your accident. The way they looked at each other when they thought no one was watching. The whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Ashley asking about my will, my accounts, my plans for the house. Jason suggesting I update my life insurance." I took a sip of tea. "Individually, those things could be innocent. Together? That's smoke. And where there's smoke, there's fire coming." "The trust documents," Danielle said. "The ones they thought they signed. Gerald really made fake versions?" "2 sets of everything. One set that said what I told them it said, that they'd be co-trustees with you, that they'd have access to the property. Another set, the real one, that specified beneficiaries must be blood relatives of mine. They never even questioned it because greed makes people stupid. They saw what they wanted to see." Danielle laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "I married him. I shared a bed with someone who could plan to murder me." "You married who you thought he was," I corrected. "The real Jason Cooper, the one who could drug you and push you downstairs. You never met him until it was almost too late." We watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. The city sprawled out below us, millions of lives being lived, most of them honest, some of them not. "What about Ashley?" Danielle asked. "Do you think she ever really loved Thomas?" That question had haunted me too. My son, dead 4 years now, and his widow, turned out to be capable of attempted murder. "I don't know. Maybe she did at first. Maybe grief and loneliness twisted her into something different. Or maybe she was always calculating, and I just never saw it. Does it matter? No," I admitted. "Either way, she made her choices. She lives with the consequences." A cardinal landed on the porch railing, bright red against the darkening sky. We watched it preen for a moment before it flew away. "The documents you signed before the police arrived," Danielle said. "The ones about the pension and the money for Ashley." I smiled. "Also fake. Gerald prepared them that morning, knowing the police would arrive during the signing. Maximum psychological impact. Let them think they'd won everything right before they lost it all." "That's cold, Dad. They tried to kill my daughter. Cold was appropriate." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you. For protecting me. For getting justice. For being the kind of person who fights back. You would have done the same for me? Maybe. But I didn't see it coming. You did." I shrugged. "Different skills. You teach music to middle schoolers. That requires the patience of a saint. I walk into burning buildings and read smoke. We all have our talents." The sky deepened to indigo. Lights came on across the neighborhood, warm yellow windows promising dinners and conversations and normal family life. The kind of life we could have now, without betrayal, lurking in the spare bedroom and poison in the coffee. "What now?" Danielle asked. "Now we live," I said. "You teach your students. I restore furniture and volunteer at the Veterans Center. We have Sunday dinners. We make new memories in this house that aren't tainted by their schemes." "And if I want to date again someday?" I pretended to think about it. "I'll run a full background check, hire Marcus to follow them for a month, and have Gerald review their financial history. She laughed, a real laugh this time. You're joking. Am I? Dad? Fine, but I get to meet them first, and I will be watching for smoke. She stood, kissed my forehead. Deal. I'm going to make dinner. Pasta okay? Perfect. She went inside, and I sat alone with my thoughts as the last light faded from the sky. Somewhere across the city, Jason sat in a cell, facing 12 years of concrete and regret. Ashley had 8 years to think about what greed had cost her. And here I was, 68 years old, sitting on the porch of a house they'd killed for but would never have. Justice, I thought, tastes better than revenge. I raised my glass of tea to the empty evening. To Thomas, I said quietly, I wish you were here. I wish Ashley had been the person we thought she was. But she wasn't, and now she and Jason are paying the price for their choices. The cardinal returned to the railing, watching me with bright, intelligent eyes. And to Danielle, I continued, who survived their worst, who's stronger than they ever guessed. I finished the tea and stood. The house waited behind me, warm and safe, all mine. Well, mine and Danielle's, the way it should be. Inside, I could hear Danielle singing while she cooked. Something about that sound, that simple evidence of her being alive and happy and free, made everything worth it. The planning, the acting, the cold calculation required to beat Jason and Ashley at their own game. I'd spent 38 years fighting fires. Turned out I was just as good at fighting predators, and I'd won. If you like this story, subscribe to our new channel and listen to a few stories there. You can find the link to it in the collaboration or description of this video or in the comments. Subscribe so you don't lose us, because this channel may soon cease to exist